call the meeting to order. We will start with the agenda. And we're going to go by the agenda as printed. So the first order of business will be the approval, the approval of the minutes. Let's see. Are there, I'll give everybody a few minutes to peruse them.
Yeah, and I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, there has been a motion made on the floor for the approval of minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we approve the minutes. Any questions on the motion? If not, can we carry the motion by everybody saying aye?
Aye.
Okay, I don't think I heard everybody. Okay, so we're going to move that the minutes have been approved. And we're going to go to the approval of budget report for September. Pete?
So you'll see on the screen is the current budget report as of last Friday. Expenses, revenues are running ahead of schedule again. Again, we talked about why that is, and there's more money coming in. Second, our expenses are as would be expected. One thing that I will say is that we still don't have a rollover amount, although I know that we will be getting that soon because the books closed on FY24 yesterday. So we should be getting those numbers into the system very soon. So I would have that at the next budget meeting. There is these expenses since the last meeting. All expenses that are over 5,000 have been approved at previous meetings and are basically recurring. There wasn't any other issues that was found. I have made an attempt to make sure that we put the items for which the money was spent on everything. And I did send this in more detailed full year in budget packets. So if anybody has any questions about the budget or any kind of concern on payments, I'll take those now.
Hey, Pete. I wasn't here, obviously, when the front load truck
Yes.
rental was put together. Could you give it a real quick, for my benefit, real quick update on what that all entails?
Yeah, it was basically an exchange for the waste district decided to purchase the front load truck and 84 front load dumpsters, 8-yard dumpsters, in exchange for Metro government performing something that the waste district had wanted to do for quite some time, and that is pop-up drop-off events. So as we have went, this was the payment on this is about $5,000 a month, obviously 5,022. And we've been going on the pop-up drop-off now for about 3.5 years, I think. Is that pretty close to accurate, Karen? I think.
Yep.
So it'll get to a point where we want to take a look at how much money has been spent on pop-ups versus how much has been spent on the front load truck. Maybe we want to continue the agreement in some form or fashion. So I would hope that we do. And that's basically it. And really the front load truck was used, the dumpsters were used to transition from 30-yard roll-offs at unstaffed or self-served recycling sites to these front loads. And that was done for efficiency and also to help us reduce illegal dumping, which it made a major impact on reducing that illegal dumping. And made us much more efficient. So you have any questions on that.
Is that for a certain number of years, Pete, or what's the story with the rental?
It really, there wasn't any parameters. The rental itself, it was for a 5-year term.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think we're pretty close to 3.5. It didn't quite work because when we made the agreement, we didn't get the front load truck for almost a year after. So it just took time to get the equipment.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
No, as I was. And we don't vote on the budget. No, okay. Okay, so let's move on to, I'm sorry, let's move on to new business, the recycle right. Let me go back. There are no action items, so we're gonna move on to new business. Recycle right temporary personnel.
Yes, that one's me. So I have a few slides just to remind everyone about our Recycle Right program. I think we've talked about it a lot, but I know there are some new people like Brian. So we do have 4 part-time staff. Well, I should say we have 4 positions available for part-time staff to help with our Recycle Right program. And that is basically helping to reduce recycling contamination and educate people about how to recycle right. So we mostly do recycling programs, although we can use their education specialists. So we do some other cart-based education as well. But in this program, the idea is to give way to no tags to anyone who does not have the contaminants in their recycling cart, and oops tags if they do have contaminants. And the ones we look for are styrofoam, plastic bags and wrap, food waste, food and liquid, large items or tanglers, hazardous flammable materials, and then bagged recycling. And most of the time, residents are receiving either a green tag that none of those were seen, or a yellow tag. We occasionally get red tags, and those are reserved for, well, I think I have another slide that goes through those specifically. The red tag is kind of reserved for people who are basically utilizing their cart for trash or maybe for yard waste. We do, and they're the only ones that don't get collected. We work with the crews to tell them that there was a red tag, but with a very low percentage of those. And then the yellow, I think, is on the next slide. So that one's going to be moderate contamination, not so bad that we don't want the material to still be taken to the recycling facility, but we want people to be educated that they did have some things in there that we would rather them not have in the recycling container. And the green tag, on the back of all the tags, we just highlight the things that you should be recycling. And everything on our tags is in English and Spanish, and with a QR code that takes you to our website. So you have information if anyone wants to reach out about the program with questions. So the reason that we are talking about this is because when this, we actually hired our first staff last November. So we're coming up on a year of this program running. And when we created these positions, they were considered temporary or seasonal. It's hard to explain why that happened and how, but we were learning. We were learning as we went, basically. And what we found is that as we hired, they were on for 9 months and they have an end date. This hasn't come up because our part-time staff has, we've had enough turnover. No one has actually stayed for a full 9 months until now. We have someone who is through that mark. And we actually don't want to lose him. That seasonal time, I think when we wanted to do this, we were considering having it a seasonal program and skipping the winter months. But as far as the position went, it didn't work out that way. It was basically they were hired and then 9 months from that date, no matter what date it was when they had to stop. So we've been working with HR to figure out what needs to change and find out if it affected the budget or anything like that. So it turns out that we can transition them from what they call temporary to a permanent part-time position. There's still no benefits as far as vacation accrual or anything like that. So really, the budget impact didn't really change except for just putting them as working all year long. So the original approval, which was a couple years ago by the board, showed them having that seasonal time frame. So if you look at the budget, the personnel, the original approval was the 49,000. And we have never been fully staffed. So actually, to date, we've spent about 35,000 on the employees that we've had. If we had all 4 staff for an entire year, the new personnel expense would be about 70,000. So we just wanted to make you aware and I guess get approval that if we were fully staffed for an entire year, that is okay. We had to estimate the printing costs, and we currently have almost been through a full year of this program and only spent about $5,000. So we're not even reaching our estimate of printing. And then when we started, we thought we would do mailings, but it turned out to keep this program rolling as quickly as we do, and to account for sudden changes in our schedule, we found that the mailings were not necessary. We actually started out by leaving a letter at the cart, and then we changed that to having what's in the letter basically on the card itself, and then also being on the website, which has a QR code on the card. So we're just sort of streamlining that information instead of leaving so many different things and having to come up with another way to attach it to the cart. So we aren't doing the mailings. We're also sharing this information through our Works Week and through council people, so they know when we're in their area. So if they get any calls, they know what it's all about. So that's why those changed to 0. So if you look at the total, it actually goes down. But we just wanted to share that and I guess make sure that personnel expense going up is okay.
Okay, so for clarity, so the 70,142 is for 4 people, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then the 5,000 going to be for printing. Okay, so do we have any questions on that?
Just a thought, if I can, Karen.
Sure.
What if I understand the whole 9-month thing? I had to deal with that too. Temporary, part-time, or whatever.
Yeah.
What if you came up with a system where there was some sort of for lack of a better term, reward for somebody who hangs on for the 9 months, that they move into some other role, like full-time, on the back of a truck or some other role, so that you encourage folks, if you like them. If you hate them, I hope we get rid of them. But if you like them and you want them to stay, and you want to, I don't want to say get around HR, that's not the right thing for that. I'll say it anyway. Want to deal with those concerns from HR, to come up with some sort of reward, saying, if they meet some other basic requirement of the job, the full-time job, that you move them into that role at that point. And then they say, wow, geez, I really want to hang on and get that full-time position, then you have them for the whole, 8 or 9 months or whatever it is. And then of course, you have to hire another person for it, but you're gonna have to hire somebody else for that position anyway, even at the end of the
Yeah.
9 months.
Yeah, I think, well, we decided that these 4 positions would be part-time and they only work in the early morning and it's up to 17 and a half hours per week. We schedule them 16 hours per week and then we have a little cushion in case anything happens. But I think the problem with that is just having that position being created. And we currently, we had discussed having one of those positions be like a team leader. But at this point, we haven't been able to keep the positions filled. So it hasn't really come up. But part of the supervisor's role is to kind of keep those staff, as far as knowing. I guess there's some admin, there's a lot actually of admin responsibilities for this. And, we've had occasionally a staff person that helps with that. And one of the part-time positions, but most of the time now it's falls onto one of our full-time positions. So,
Well, I'm just going on to say that you always have vacancies that need to be filled. And if the person meets the basic requirements of those full-time positions, I'm not sure what the requirement is. Let's say if they're in the back of a recycling truck, if they have to have a CDL at that point or not. But
Director Kern here, just a quick comment. We've made some pretty incredible strides as far as keeping full with our field labor. We don't have the turnover, maybe, Brian, that we experienced historically, but we're pretty low on vacancies compared to what we used to be. So, I mean, I think to Karen's point, there may not be a vacancy when you need one.
And if I could, this is Pete. Sorry, Karen. One thing I would point out is that we have had several of these individuals apply and gain full-time employment through this program. I'm not incorrect, am I, Karen?
Well, yeah, but at least 2. One that actually still works full-time in Public Works. But yeah, so they're absolutely able to apply for a full-time position.
of course.
And we, the one that is still with us, I've highly recommended her, but we as an education department, we don't have vacancies to fill. It's
No,
not,
no,
this
exactly.
position is not going to roll right into being a tipper. And really the positions right now, we have someone who's retired from LMPD crime scene unit, and she's happy doing what she wants to do. She comes, does her work and leaves. She's retired, doesn't want to do anything else. We've had the opposite young person, really hoping to get full-time eventually. And we encourage that, if they want to apply and move on, absolutely. It is what it is as far as a job goes, but it's not as easy to say that someone's just going to roll right into a full-time position. So we have 4 of these part-time positions, and we can get the job done with 2. It's better with 3. It would be amazing with 4. So we'll just hopefully continue improving as we get more people.
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve the budget change. I think if you've had success and you have people that you want to keep on for longer than the temporary period allows, I think this obviously gives you that flexibility. And if there is a position available for them and that's something else that they want to do that's full time, then that's a conversation that you all can have as a department. But I like that this gives you all the flexibility to keep people that are successful and enjoying what they're doing.
I will second.
That's been moved and second that we have been approved.
Do you need to speak up?
Oh, I'm sorry. It has been approved and second that we go ahead and approve this budget for $75,142 for 4 part-time recycle employees. Pete, can you do a roll call? First of all, are there any questions on the motion? Okay, Pete, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, Andy Reynolds,
Yes.
Brian Funk,
Yes.
Alex Davidson,
Yes.
and Deetra Shipley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so next in the new business is litter perception survey results. So Karen,
Yes, back to me.
Okay.
So you might recall, because I'm pretty sure I asked everyone to help share this survey. But we did in April, the month of April, we had live a online litter perception survey, and we had already had the first litter campaign that was an outreach digital campaign, the It Adds Up one. And we were about to start our new campaign, which was the Clean Together campaign. So what I wanted to do at that point was try to get a baseline on the perceptions of Louisville residents. So we shared this survey out, and it wasn't too lengthy. I think it could take someone 5 to 10 minutes, maybe, depending on how many comments they wanted to put in. But we had over 1,000 survey responses, and I have a few graphs that just highlight of the key findings. I have raw data, an example survey. As far as if you're curious about more, I'm happy to share, but we'll start with just highlighting some of this. So one of the questions was, have you seen or heard messaging about litter? And if you had, we wanted people to kind of check the boxes as far as how they have heard about any messaging about litter. But as you can see, the majority of people had not heard any messaging about litter. Pete, you want to go to the next one? We also asked, where is the most litter? Now, keep in mind, this is a perception survey. This is not fact.
Ooh.
This is just what people thought. So we gave these options and asked them to select up to 3. So that's why the percentages don't add up to 100, because people could choose more than one. But you can kind of see, you know, the majority of people are seeing this on highways and streets and interstates, alleys, on down to shopping centers. Didn't have as many. We found it interesting. I know, I think Rob is on the call. We talked about, you know, things that we see working with litter and working in the industry was kind of surprising, because some of the places where we see a lot of litter are the convenience stores and the shopping centers. But the perception is that most of this, or maybe where people are when they see it, are along streets and interstates and alleys. A couple other questions. One, why might people litter? So we gave, again, gave some options. We also, of course, had a little box if they wanted to comment some other reason, but lack of community pride was a big one, laziness, and it's just more convenient to litter than to, I guess, you know, put waste in its place. And then the no container nearby was just 3% there, which was kind of interesting as far as how we feel about why people litter, but that's, again, the perception of residents here. And then on the right there, it says, I think people litter, and the options were I think people litter accidentally, on purpose, or both. So quite a lot more chose on purpose, and even more on both. And then accidentally was a very low, low perception there. How often do you see people picking up litter? This one we were pleased about because a lot of people actually see people picking up litter. It did not specify about who it is, if it's neighbors or, crews, but people often see people picking up litter, and the never was the lowest.
Karen, were there any ranges given for rarely, sometimes, and often?
Those were the ranges on that one.
Okay, I just
think
didn't know if there was any numerical value associated, like 5 or more times.
Yes. I think sometimes, I of course don't have that pulled up anymore. I think the sometimes was like every few months or something. Yes,
Okay.
it did give kind of like an idea of what
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
meant. Mhm. And then the big one is kind of asking if people think litter in Louisville is a problem. And if so, there was a range of, not a problem at all, minor problem, major problem, severe problem. But we do have 92% of residents believe it is a major or severe problem. This map here, I asked for some help from our ArcGIS staff person, and he did this when we were about 800 surveys in. I was trying to make sure that it didn't seem heavy in one area of the county, because I was going to push this out to specific neighborhoods or areas if needed. And then I did not get an update once it was completely done. So the map itself visually probably didn't change a whole lot, but it is lacking a few hundred surveys. But you can see on the left, this is just a little bit of looking at the raw data and counting how many of our respondents fit each of the age and the gender categories. So this does not have to do with people who are littering. It has to do with who responded to the survey. So, take that as you want. But we did find it interesting that, more than half of our respondents are between, or over 55.
Yeah, and I had a sort of a connecting question with that, with, most people saying they had never seen or heard anything about litter. Do you know what portion of the advertising budget is on digital ads? Even like a rough ballpark?
A lot of it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I will say that they purposely target the younger audience because they have statistically been proven to be the bigger of the litterers.
The ones who, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reach the people who are littering, not necessarily the people who are going to, respond to surveys.
Absolutely. So that's
I think it's an
connection.
interesting observation. Maybe that's why we didn't get as many younger. I don't know.
Is that the
Any
last
thoughts?
slide about the litter survey, Pete?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that one. Or
So,
that's yours.
I thought the survey was really good. Karen, I think you did a really good job on that. Obviously, some surprising things in there for people that actually live it every day. I think the biggest disappointment is that 92% of people see this as a huge issue. And what's sad is that if you have 92% of Louisville seeing this as a big issue, businesses see this as a big issue if they're looking to locate. And we need to do better. One of the things that I think Karen looked at was that's pretty much identical to what the rest of the country is, which, it was interesting. But it just goes to show how much work we have to do. And I'm glad that we have this perception survey. I feel like that we can improve it, but we can't change it so much that we're going to lose our baseline information. So the other part about this last meeting was I shared this chart, and it is the total number of Metro 311 complaints about litter. And as I talked to you last time, that category is got a lot of different things in it. So we're going to try to pare this down. But when it all comes down to it, and Rob did a huge amount of work going into each individual one, but when we look at it, only about 40% of the litter things are really pertaining to litter cleanup requests. So we have to keep that in mind, and we have to get a little bit better. Some of this is, requesting litter basket placement, new liners, overflowing litter baskets, which are related to litter. But I think that we could create something that's going to be able to filter that out to where we can get to where we need be. But the 305, the 32% there, has a lot of stuff in there that people would put in that just does not belong there. Rotten food and green spaces, maybe. LG&E leaving limbs, bad driver. I'm not real sure how that gets there. So the sad part about it is some of these things are going into our litter category when they should be going to another place where they can be handled in a timely manner, and they get caught up in the mix. But I think we can do better on this. I think I've talked with Rob, and for us to truly make this a metric going backwards, we would have to go through all of 2023 to do that. And he's committed to do that, but it will take a long time, and he'll do that over time. So we will be able to use this as a metric moving forward, and we probably will be able to improve it. So that's one of those things that when we create these campaigns, we always want to try to measure, and we've had a really difficult time trying to find a way to measure. So just wanting to keep you guys up to date on it. Any questions? Yeah.
I'm sorry, Pete, I didn't interrupt you. Yeah, I had a question. Litter cleanup request swims litter crew. Is that it's more of an action item than a complaint, sounds like. Am I misreading it, or are these all action items?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. It's a service request because there's litter. And Rob, Rob knows them inside and out because he's the one that went through them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll let Rob answer that.
Yeah, we
Hello,
just
Rob.
have that right there. Hey, we just have it swims litter crew, meaning that's who would handle that complaint. So for example, those 319 are mainly going to be this intersection has litter. There's litter on Broadway. There's litter on Dixie Highway. There's roadside litter that the Clean Collaborative crew would handle. So that's why you see swims litter crew on there. Whereas the rest of it is just kind of it's going into litter, but it's not really. So they all are kind of action items. Everybody's wanting something corrected with these. It's just
exactly. That's the way I was reading it, that none of them really say litter complaint. I mean, they say where it is or who's going to take care of it.
Yeah, currently the way that they come in, it's all just put into, as you said, litter complaint. That's essentially what the service request is. And then from there, it's just how it gets handled.
Because none of this would really tell me really how much how many litter complaints we have. Just outright litter complaints as compared to who's going to do what to get it resolved.
Well, I would say that the 319 is going to be the sole actual litter complaints. And when we're saying complaints, like I said, everybody's asking. They're always coming in as please correct kind of complaints. So so that's why we'll put the 319 as kind of be what you're thinking, and then the rest is in other categories.
Because in reality, that's not. Let's even just that it's 2024 to date. That's those 319. That's really not an awful lot. But I know that there's a lot of litter out there.
Yeah. And that could be, that goes back to perception. If, unfortunately, over time, maybe people have quit calling because they're afraid that, well, what's going to get done, that type of thing. So there's a lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I'm a little bit disappointed in, thinking where I think we can do better, is the report of litter. For those that don't know, if you see someone littering, you can call Metro 311 or make a complaint through the system that says that you saw this vehicle with this license plate at this intersection on this time of day, throw cigarette butts out their window, or their McDonald's cup out the window. And that will generate a service request that will be investigated, and if everything matches up, then that person would receive a letter basically saying, hey, you were observed throwing litter out of your vehicle. Please don't do that. This can be what happens. And I think at one time we were actually even giving a bag that would be going in there so they can have that in their car instead of throwing it out. So, 92 is not a whole lot. I think that's something that, it's through Brightside, but we're the ones that's kind of doing the actual work part of that. And, I think it could be promoted a little bit more. I know at one point we were getting hundreds of them. And what was unfortunate was we kept getting some of the same cars over and over. And there's not much that you can do about it. But yeah, it's one of them that we need to get better at. Any other questions on this or on the perception survey?
I apologize for asking another question, but one thing I don't see here is, which I see a way too much, is litter coming from, well, I don't want to just pick on the garbage trucks or the private sector's garbage trucks, but I see a lot of that coming off the garbage trucks that end up as litter on the roads for whatever reason. They don't close the top, or there's too much paper, or the vehicle's too full, or something or other. But I don't see anything here. At least I
Well,
don't
I will
notice.
tell you that, I mean, they're probably contained within the litter cleanup request to a certain degree. But I will say that is one thing that we're trying to address. We're working in a group with LNPD, other departments to try to come up with a solution there. And we have something that we're close to being able to do, but what we want to do is be able to roll this out with an education to all the waste haulers, including Metro, and saying, hey, we're going to be out enforcing this, and then we're going to start enforcing it. And hopefully we're going to get quick compliance. I know we have already issued one citation for something that was very egregious, and we happened upon it at the right time, which was paid quickly. And but I agree with you, Brian, that we have some work to do, and some of it is poor maintenance. A lot of loads are covered, but they're not covered well. So fixing covers, and then you have a whole lot more mom and pops out there that are hauling smaller dumpsters, dumping trailers that aren't covering their loads. So they're not doing a very good job of that. So we got a ways to go on that, and we agree. It is an area that we see, and we're going to try to address.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, and I would just say, Pete and Brian, I think if you go back one slide, one of the red areas right there in terms of litter complaints is the I-65 corridor right there, going toward outer loop. So I think that does reflect some of that. And it looks like Pikes Point area, I guess, and then one other that looks like a little bit north of the original Highlands, maybe like into Crescent Hill, like Frankfurt Avenue
good
area.
point, Andy. Good point.
Yeah, we have identified certain areas where it's worse, and hopefully we can do that. Some of this is entrance ramps to highways. They're awful, but that's where trucks are picking up speed and going around a turn, and that tends to be where they lose it. Could be from a front load truck, or it could be from a compactor, it could be from a pickup truck. But however. Let's see where we at.
You're going backwards.
Yep. That concludes the litter perception survey results. And new
Okay.
business.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any more questions on that? Okay, so let's go to old business. Feed Louisville donation requests. Pete, I think that's you, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm not sure why the whole slide isn't showing up. There we go. Can the board donate or sponsor a nonprofit organization such as Feed Louisville? I believe that was a very good discussion that we had, a very good presentation. Right now, I know that Robbie's turned on his camera. And Robbie, do you want to talk about the legality of that? Have we come up with a conclusion?
We have not come up, I know you wanted a conclusion, but I apologize. We have not come up with, there's a couple questions that we need to address. We do think it meets the public purpose requirements, but you all are unique relative to what we've dealt with in the past. You're not funded the same way some of these other organizations within Metro are. They're not taxes, they're license fees. I don't know that that makes a difference, but we need to research that. And then there was a second part of this that there's some aspects to it that you might want to address in advance before you do this, such as the coming to an agreement with them. Like we would want to arrange how this is done, a contractual agreement. Oh, there you go. Well, is that what you're clicking on?
Yeah, I'd also sent this over to purchasing and
Okay.
O&B to see what their recommendations were. And it sounds like the recommendations are going to be the same
Okay.
as what you're saying.
Yeah, so that would just leave, we need to make sure that that you fit the same criteria that other organizations that have done similar things. We need to make sure that you fit that so that we're not, though it is a public purpose, I'm not 100% sure that your statutory authority and the ordinance authority matches up just yet. We're still looking at that, so we're going to need a little bit more time. So it does meet the general criteria for what you could do something like this, because it is a public purpose and it meets all the criteria for that. But we need to make sure that the power of the board actually matches up with letting you do that. So I think that, and that with the grant agreement that you've got there were the two questions that we had outstanding. It looks like one of them is already taken care of. So that would just leave us looking at your statutory authority and ordinance authority to make sure that it matches up. I've taken a look at it and I want to get a second opinion because there are ramifications if we get that wrong. So we need to make sure that we're giving you a for sure answer on this, that we're 100% in agreement that you can do it. And I don't think that we're there yet. We're still looking at it.
Thanks, Robbie. The second part of that, what Robbie was talking about, that I got from Public Works or from purchasing was the grant or donation agreement. I think that if we can do this, we certainly need to have a donation agreement, grant agreement, which spells out the details. And that's not a problem. You know, but there's an example of one that's up there. We do these things a lot. So I don't think creating that document is very difficult at all. However, what I would say, and in talking with other people, is that I believe that if we make this donation, which could be very logical to do, I think we'll have other people coming to us. I'm sure they will. That in a minute. But I believe that we need to set a criteria and a process. We want to ensure that what the board donates to fits with its mission and what it's going to do and how it's going to do that. And it can also have the secondary benefits included, which is feeding people, which is huge and important. But I think for us to be consistent moving forward, establishing that criteria for applying, reviewing, and awarding is important. And what I would recommend is that the board possibly task that to the advisory committee to look at, along with staff and legal, to make sure that we're going to be doing this right.
Yeah, I would be okay with tasking that to the advisory committee. I think it can be as straightforward as saying that we would only donate to organizations or causes that are in agreement with the existing solid waste plan and the goals established in the solid waste plan, which gives us flexibility, but narrows the scope of what we're looking at. It's not, just sort of conservation more generically, but has to do with waste and litter abatement, recycling, diversion, those
Just to build on, oh, I'm sorry, Pete, didn't mean to interrupt. Pete, you're on mute. Can't hear
Yeah,
you.
no audio is coming through though for some reason.
Something happened.
Well, I'll make a point while Pete's trying to work on that. Just to build on what Andy was saying, first off, I want to say great presentation last month. I thought the lady whose name escapes me did a wonderful presentation, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody else did too. The thought I had since then was this. You know, she was asking for like a donation, you know, some dollar amount for you know, some maybe ongoing thing, which is what I'm sure they get a lot of types of donations for. The thought I had, being a government, and there'd be restrictions on it, it just kind of build on what Andy was saying. Possibly, you know, she said something about to the effect that if they had blank about more money or for more equipment, et cetera, whatever it was, they'd be able to do more blank. Serve more people, reduce waste, whatever it may be. The thought I had then was maybe make a donation for a capital need that they have that has the results that would be potentially measurable, you know, to be included into an agreement. You know, here's this money to buy this. It will do this amount of this stuff, which, to Andy's point, will complies with you know, the solid waste management plan or some other type of thing that we've given a, you know, is part of our plan going forward. So I don't know, blank amount of money for, I'll just throw something out there, kitchen equipment that allows them to do blank, blank, blank. That could be measurable, and then they can get back to us with the results saying that we have met your measurable, you know, here's the measurable results of that you had in your agreement. Makes the procurement people happy, makes the lawyers happy, and makes everybody else say, well, gee, I can't go to the district to ask for money because I can't do the same thing that this group did, which is come up with something measurable as a result of, you know, the money that we've given to somebody. It kind of helps to restrict the number of people or number of groups that would potentially be able to be successful in asking us for money, because they won't have the ability or may not have the ability to do what this group did.
Hi, this is Bruce Farrell. May I make a comment, please?
Go ahead.
I
Yes.
serve on another board up in Indianapolis, and we award grants annually to various applicants. The first thing that we did when this Indiana Recycling Market Development Board started awarding grants was to develop a matrix that actually worked for state government, the purchasing group, as well as the board who is evaluating the grants that are submitted. We restricted funding only to equipment, as you just mentioned. And I think it's a protective measure as well as a fairness measure to your applicants, because you will have a waterfall of applicants come in when we start sending, you know, handing money out. And some will feel that they were wrongly denied. If you have a scoring metrics, you have a measurable in hand where you can show where they fell short, and they're more than welcome to apply the next round. But just a little bit of advice that hopefully may be of help to us. But again, just because we do it up there doesn't mean we have to do it here, but it's just what I'm comfortable with and I've, you know, been a part of over the last 15 years.
Okay. I also agree. I think we should send it to the advisory committee so we can come up with specific criteria for an ask, because once we, once we start handing out funds, you know, everybody will come. Once we have everything mapped out, as everybody has already stated, when somebody comes and asks for funds, we already have our criteria out there. And so I do agree that it should go to advisory committee and they bring it back to us, along with the answers from the attorneys.
Thank you, Ms. Shipley. We'll be happy to take on that responsibility.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. The next thing is capture rate study contract. I think Pete's mic is gone.
You want to move on to the Clean Collab stuff while you work on that? I can just talk through it.
Okay, go ahead.
You want to bring up the presentation, Pete?
You know, I think everybody should take a moment to appreciate the situation we have. We've been trying to put a muzzle on Pete for years. And we finally accomplished that, Rob. Yeah.
All right, so I'll introduce myself. I know there's some familiar faces from when I used to come to the board quite often and some new ones since then. I'm Rob Lush. I'm the Clean Collaborative Coordinator for Louisville Metro Public Works. I oversee our Clean Collaborative operations, which is essentially, you know, working with numerous organizations to collect litter that's out on the roadways. This here is just a picture of some of our employees, some of our equipment. Pete, if you go to the next slide. Just kind of broad information on litter in 2021. There's a large national organization released one of the largest studies on litter in America. You know, litter is a big issue across the country. And obviously, you know, the 50 billion pieces of litter along the roadways and waterways. Back when they did this, it's more than 2,000 pieces of litter per mile. So, you know, it's a costly problem. It's a problem that doesn't have one solution, but it takes a team to figure out how to work through that. So Pete, if you want to go to the next one. So I just want to give an overview for Clean Collaborative. Some of you may be aware, not aware, what Clean Collaborative is. So like I said, we work with numerous organizations such as you guys, the Waste District, Public Works, KYTC when it comes to the interstate, Brightside for volunteer cleanups, Louisville Downtown Partnership with their ambassadors downtown, Goodwill with their Another Way crew. They go out and get the houseless population and help them to get on their feet. But they also take them out to collect litter. Just depends on how often, 2 to 3 times a week. So other organizations, for example, Waste Management, we partner with them to have a street sweeper go through Outer Loop every month. You know, try to work on that because that's always an issue through there. So there's a lot of organizations out there that we work with. Pete, next one. Some of the focus areas that we have is the Central Business District. So Clean Collaborative cannot go within the CBD for routine litter collection. That falls underneath the Downtown Partnership with their ambassadors that they have. Major roadways. So we have just over 1,000 scheduled route, just over 1,000 miles of scheduled routes that we try to do throughout Louisville Metro. We try to do that minimum 4 times a year, if possible more. We have alley action. Alley action goes through. They'll cut back alleyways to open it up because a lot of times these alleys are just so overgrown it invites criminal activity, illegal dumping, a whole host of problems. So they'll go through there. Right away mowing. Brian's familiar with that with the Public Works and their contracts. Street sweeping. So swims, they handle it in USD. I'm getting some feedback from somebody.
Yeah. I think it's
Okay.
I think that's coming from Pete.
No, it's somebody calling in, I believe.
Oh, maybe everybody put it on mute.
Yeah, okay. So SWIMS, they handle the street sweeping within the USD. Then we have a contractor that does the suburban routes. We also, vehicle accidents. How many times do you drive throughout Louisville in a day and see a bumper or a fender laying on the side of the roadway? Next slide.
Rob, if I could, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So Clean Collab, it has 18 laborers with 1 supervisor. As I said, they have just over 1,000 scheduled miles of roadway that they try to clean as much as possible. Clean Collab started early to mid, really got on their feet mid 2021. So since then, year to date, we've cleaned 18,000 curb miles, collected 60,000 trash bags, over 4,000 tires, and you see other items. So it's hard to put everything into a category. So essentially other items is everything from a couch to a bumper, a dresser, car seat, whatever the case is, they pick it up as they're out there. And on that, I will say that we have actually seen a decrease in what we're collecting, but an increase in the miles that they're collecting. Excuse me. So for example, in 2022, they cleaned about 4,500 curb miles and collected almost over 19,000 trash bags. In 2023, the miles went up to over 5,500 miles, but the bags decreased to 15,000. Yep, Brandon's asking to have this emailed to him after. So you do see bags per mile decrease since it started, as well as other items. So, and tires, for example, in 2022, the crew collected over 8,000 other items. So far to date for 2024, we're at 2,300. So we have seen a decrease in what we're picking up. So it could be a variety of reasons for that, but I just thought that was interesting. So Pete, next slide. So KYTC. So as we saw in the litter perception survey, the interstates is one of the top places that people see litter. What many don't know is Louisville Metro is not allowed to send. We can't send our employees out there. It's KYTC maintained. So they hold the contract for the litter collection and mowing. Currently for this year, they are doing 3 mowings along the interstates. So thankfully through funding with Clean Collab, we were able to pay for supplemental cleanups during the winter time. So essentially, if it wasn't for that funding, the interstates wouldn't be cleaned pretty much from November until potentially April of the following year. So that's a lot of trash on the roadways. So since we took that over with the supplemental, we've had over 36,000 trash bags collected off the interstate. Some of the issues with that, the contract only covers where they mow. So you'll have some issues where there's trash up in the trees or up in the wood line that's not a spot that's covered by the contract. It's not handled. Next slide. As I mentioned, Louisville Downtown Partnership, their contractor is building your blocks with their ambassadorship program. Since 2021, that crew within the CBD and just outside of it collected almost 17,000 trash bags. What I'll say is building your blocks also has a community ambassadors. So you might see them along Bardstown Road. I think New Cut, for example, might be a spot that they go. So they are in other areas as well. Next slide. As I mentioned, another way, as you can see here, their mission is to help employees gain job skills, work-based learning. They'll help them out with, if someone needs an ID card, they'll take them, set them up with that. If they need assistance with rehab, they'll point them in the right direction from there. So since we started working with them in 2022, they've collected over 4,000 trash bags along the roadway, and they've been a tremendous help for me. For example, if there's an area that needs something attention right away, but I'm not able to have our crews tackle it, they've always stepped up and helped out when needed. So we're definitely thankful for that program. Next one. Data dashboard. So we try to get this information out as much as possible. So for example, weekly, I'll send out an email with the updates on where the crews cleaned up, what stretches of roadway, what they removed. That goes out to the mayor's office, Metro Council members. We try to have statistics on what they're doing. One of the other ways that we try to do that is also on the next slide through our website. So what you see here, everything in yellow and blue, not 100% sure why it was that color, but those are all the scheduled routes that our crews do throughout the year. And as I mentioned, we try to do that minimum 4 times. We've been on track. Usually we've been doing between 5 and 5.5 cycles a year. As long as that with technology, there's always issues, but we try to track when we were there, when we were last at that section of roadway, how many bags they've collected so far. The goal is to have that website reset every calendar year. So that's something that should hopefully happen January 1st. It should reset. We track everything with Clean Collaborative essentially on calendar year. Not many people know or care about what a fiscal year is for Metro government. They just know, how much did you clean up? So we just try to keep it on calendar year, just to keep it as easy as possible. Our crews, they take iPads out with them. They'll take pictures. The pictures don't necessarily show up on the dashboard. They show up on my end. That way I can track the progress and make sure, someone calls and says, when were you last there? I've got, the images to show it, and I can tell when we last collected. Because unfortunately, there is sections of roadway that we could clean every day and get bags of trash each time we go out. So it is unfortunate, but that's what we're dealing with and hoping to improve. But that is, I think, the last slide that I've got. Does anyone have any questions for me on Clean Collaborative or any other organizations that we work with?
Rob, if I could, I went back to this slide for a reason. And as Rob was presenting, you're hearing that the state only cleans 3 times per year, and they only clean where they mow. Metro is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars cleaning state highways. That is really the responsibility of the state. Imagine if we had those funds to clean our roads the way that they should be. One of the things that I wanted to get the opinion of the board, but I feel like that we need to advocate for additional cleanings in Jefferson County from KYTC. And I would like to draft a letter from the board to the state KYTC, explaining why our concerns, asking for additional, and just telling them, look, we have a massive amount of cars travel into Jefferson County every day for people to work, and we're an economic engine for the state of Kentucky, and it's in their best interest to have a clean highway system as well. So just trying to get another letter out there to them, asking for them to, I don't want to say it this way, but pull their weight on their highway, take care of their responsibilities so that we can take care of ours.
Oh, you're muted, Brian.
I don't know what's wrong with this thing.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. You're preaching to the choir, Pete. I've been arguing that for years. I mean, we would meet like every 3 weeks with District 5. And every once in a while I'd bring it up. And of course they couldn't care less because they would get pressure from not the governor, obviously, but the secretary's office saying, well, Jefferson and Fayette County, they always argue that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we have to make things even statewide. Well, I would say to them, well, it snows a lot more up in the hills in eastern Kentucky than it does down here. You go up and plow that snow every time it snows up there when you don't have to do it down here. Well, we get a lot more litter down here in Jefferson County and Fayette County. Shouldn't you be putting resources into dealing with our big problem as compared to just saying, well, we got to go plow the snow up there and plowing it when it's needed. I'm not saying they should. They should always plow when it's needed and where it's needed. But
This is Director Kern. We meet monthly with KYTC, and then we also meet quarterly with state leadership. This has been brought up many, many times. Some of the recommendations that we have to do specifically with the nature of their contract. They have one contract, it's massive. And I know, Rob, I don't know if you want to share anything about some of the advice that you and I believe Dave Miller have gone around the county and kind of collected. And our recommendation is, you know, it's too big of an elephant to have one contract for it, even if that contract is for millions of dollars. So, you know, can we help them understand, because maybe sweeping isn't necessarily what the engineers at the transportation cabinet do, but where are our hot spots? What areas are going to be problematic to get? Do you need to get a skid steer out there before you sweep it? What areas are like, hey, could you call or hire a general contractor for a super easy place that they're just driving a sweeper down? It's uncomplicated. It's not a lot of trash. It's not difficult. But really rating those areas and potentially breaking the city up into zones so that they'd be able to just more effectively manage it. And I don't know, Rob, I don't know that we have any updates other than that. I know that I'm due for another meeting here soon, but that is that is in the very front of every discussion we start with KYTC.
Yeah, we have them often, as Director Kerr mentioned, for example, with their interstate sweeping. So they're essentially the street sweepers going along the emergency lanes and shoulders. You know, the goal is to have that done once a month, but as Director Kerr mentioned, it is a lot of mileage that they have to sweep, and it is a big task to take on. And it's hard to find a contractor that can take on that type of work. So I think that some things such as prioritizing certain areas is more beneficial. I think when it comes to the litter contract, which is covered under the mowing contract, I think that could be reestablished in different ways. For example, you know, if we wanted to just have their contractor clean just interstate ramps, that's not possible right now. It's kind of a you know, all or nothing type of deal. So, you know, if we wanted to say, hey, we would like to see these 20 ramps cleaned twice a month, you know, that's not something that's available to us at the moment. So I think that there are areas that can be improved through, you know, the contract. If you look at other cities, I think at one point I looked at Indianapolis, and what was it? Once a month, I think they were like 12 months a year, they were collecting litter, or potentially even more along the interstate. So I think just adjusting contracts would also be beneficial. But as Pete mentioned, you know, Louisville and Lexington, we had the most miles of roadway driven in a day compared to the rest of the state. I'm not asking that the rest of the state gets less. I'm just saying, you know, let the work match the need that's out there.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point I was trying to make, Rob. I probably wasn't making it clear enough. But it's to the state, they're all about fairness. Well, okay, let's be fair to Fayette and Jefferson by taking care of our need, which is litter and garbage, as compared to needs elsewhere in the state, the Commonwealth, which may include snow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I was talking about your issue, litter pickup, Pete, more than the sweeping, but sweeping is, you know, on the interstates is ridiculous. And are they actually using sweepers now as compared to using payloaders, what they were a year or two ago?
Yeah, they are. Their contractor is using a sweeper. I don't have an update on how that's going at the moment. But yeah, they were using a sweeper. But you know, there are certain spots along the interstate that it's so thick with gravel and dirt and debris that you almost need a skid steer to go through first and scoop up a lot of it.
No, I agree. I mean, they got to do what they got to do to provide a quality service.
Yeah.
I was just down in Nashville this last weekend, and it looks damn good down there. Why can't we achieve the same thing up here? Nashville's no better than us.
And I want to make it clear too that you know, this is not a dig at the employees that are out there every day with the state working. You know, they're maintenance crews. I mean, they do a wonderful job with what they're given. You know, so I just want to make that clear that it's not a dig at them. It's just that, you know, there is a need that we just feel like is not being addressed right now.
Okay, so I think just stay on the forefront, Pete, if you could go ahead and draft that letter. Because sometimes if you bug people enough, they'll start thinking about Fayette and Louisville. So if you could draft that letter and then we can look at it. And just for the sake of time, because I know our time is winding down, we are at the cost of the service study contract. Pete, is that you?
Hey, Pete, do you need a motion for that letter?
Yeah, for the letter. Do you need a motion for the letter?
Yeah, Deetra, I will, and everyone, Sean he is on the line now. I don't know, Sean, do you want to take the chairship back? And
You know what? Dietrich's been doing a great job. I was able to listen for a long time, but I wasn't going to try to participate until I could be on camera. So I think she's doing a great job. I'll let her continue there. But yeah, do you need a motion to produce that letter?
I don't. I can just, at least I don't feel like I need to. I think if I would want a motion to approve the letter before we send
Okay.
it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, so Pete, once we get that together at our next meeting, we'll go ahead and vote on that. The cost of the service study contract?
Okay, well, I have the capture rate study first, which is something that you guys have seen. I put that in your packet. It has been reviewed by the advisory committee. It's been the RFP committee, which is made up of staff and members of the advisory committee, scored and recommended awarding this. It's a pretty simple process, really. We basically, it breaks down how we're going to collect the samples, from how many houses we're going to collect the samples, and how the categories are going to be sorted. And, you know, this has been a goal of ours for quite some time. The cost of it initially was way out of reach, or not necessarily out of reach, but out of proportion for what the work was going to be. So we had them rescope it. Metro is going to take on a lot more responsibility, but the price is coming down to about $50,000, which I think is manageable. And, you know, I think that this is going to be one of those things that really helps direct our education in the future to increase and get better at recycling as a community. So what I would ask is that, and if the board has any questions of the contract, and I'll answer those, but I would hope that we can get this one approved tonight so we can start moving on.
I'd make a motion to approve the capture rate study contract.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, Pete, can you do a roll call?
Yes. Alex Davidson,
Yes.
Andy Reynolds,
Yes.
Brian Funk,
Yes.
Sean Killeen,
Yes.
and Deetra Shipley.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Now we're to the cost of the service study contract, right?
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
This one is really important to us. It's part of the 5-year solid waste management plan. And it's one that is looking at the cost of services with a focus to see if the subscription areas, what the level of service is, what the cost of services are, and to compare that to contracted and municipal areas to see if there's any way to compare it, to see if there's anything that we should do, could do, and should do in improving those services. So the contract, according to, you know, our process of the RFP committee, the advisory committee, we feel like that it does meet the the recommendation that's contained in it. The document was in your board packets. Just a quick breakdown of it. It's the, really 1,000-foot level. But we would have the project initiation, which would come with a data request, an initial data request. And it's a lot of data. Pretty much anything that we have. There would be a kickoff meeting that we would finalize the work plan. So there's still flexibility in here how we do it. So we can work through that as this contract moves forward. Then they would begin their waste assessment and analysis, which is they would gather the data, the gaps that they feel like that are there, and try to get the current service levels. And then they would engage the public, which is really the meat of what we're trying to do, to gather the necessary information that we need on a countywide, hopefully zip code based area or another measure that we can use. And they would do that through phone surveys, door to door, online, web-based surveys, and so on, until they get enough of these that they can feel confident in being able to demonstrate the costs in those subscription areas and be able to compare those. The third step would be to consolidate all these findings, and they would build this out and they would analyze that. And while these are in no way, shape, or form something that we have to do, they would just give their recommendation based upon what they see. Number one could be, no change. Number two could be an exclusive franchise, or number three, an exclusive franchise zones. I don't think that we would be looking at two, even if we're considering to do something. So I wouldn't want to get too far down the road on that part of it, but it would be good for them for us to see maybe some potential that's out there. And then the last part, they would give a presentation to this board so that there is a lengthy time for question and answers and concerns. So I believe that, the contract itself is ready for approval by this board. It has went through the entire Louisville Metro government process and just needs this board's approval. And if it's approved, we're ready to get rolling, because it's going to be a bit of a process. So we already have a meeting scheduled for October 3rd with our OMB department to introduce us, to go over their purchasing policies, the invoicing requirements and compliance and the like. So again, I think that we have, through the committee, through the RFP committee, through the 5-year plan discussions, I believe that this has come to a point where we're asking for this approval, and I would hope that the board can move forward.
All right, we'll need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we need to move to second.
I'll second.
Okay, are there any more questions on the vote? You want to do a roll?
Just to be, for consistency purposes, I will note that I've had concerns with the kind of the long-term ramifications of this, just from a long-term cost and competition standpoint. At the very least, I would say that we would want to have Louisville not, broken up into, say, like 2 or 3 zones. We have 6 waste haulers right now, so we push, from a numbers standpoint, half of the waste haulers out. And long term, I have concerns that it would put upward pressure on prices, because then you have three waste haulers potentially in this hypothetical situation competing for 3 areas, and maybe each one of them just kind of bids where it makes sense for them logistically. For example, to use Waste Management, since we have a host agreement with them, maybe they have an area that's logistically close to their resources. So that's just my concern, and that and people just not having choice. I was talking to some people just a couple weeks ago down in the South End who said that they love Hometown. I was asking them about it because I saw it on their toters. They said, "Oh, we love Hometown. They do such a good job." I don't know if that's everybody's position on that, but it just brings up a concern to me long term. I just feel like we are kind of progressing through this process, so there are a lot of things that we have to consider from downstream effects standpoint.
If I could
Yes,
respond,
please. Mhm.
I would agree that we have to be number one. Let's say that this is a stepped process, and I understand what you're saying is down the road. I believe that we need to preserve competition, and I think that that's important for anything so that we can get a good price.
Mhm.
I don't want to really put the cart before the horse. And, when people make a decision to say, I love Hometown, I'm sure they do. But if they could get Hometown at half the rate that they are now, they would probably love it even more. But
Right.
we don't know that. And this process is to take that step to find out what the potential is before we decide to even venture into that. I will say that there are a lot of different ways that other communities have done things like this. And we can, whatever we do, I would hope that we would tailor it to our community and to make sure that we're emphasizing our priorities because waste is pretty local. I mean, we're unlike a lot of other cities. And, we do have ample landfill space. We have multiple haulers. We've got a good system, but we're just looking to see if we can improve it. But you have to know what it is to even start. And I believe
Yes.
that's what STEP is.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Dee, if I could, how do you pronounce this contractor's name? Raftellus?
Raftellus. I believe you got it right.
Oh, wonderful.
I'd never
Number
heard of
two, that's the first time I've heard of them either. Thanks for sending out the package. I read through a lot of the personnel, whatever you want to call it, things from the employees or whatever they're going to be doing the work. The person Morgan, who's going to be being our main contact for Raftellus. I was very impressed what was shown there. She's got a lot of experience doing a lot of the things that we're looking to have done. One thing I saw interesting was they had references to other contracts of other municipalities, other counties, other states that they've done. They did one for Nashville Davidson Metro Government, which we may want to just grab a copy of if we can, if we know somebody down there, because it was very similar to what we're doing. The one thing I thought interesting there is it looked like Davidson went out, had employees doing garbage collection, then went out to the private sector, I assume, the way it was written, and realized they made a big mistake. And now they need to find a way to correct that. So I thought that was interesting because we're not looking to do that here. We're looking at kind of doing something a little bit different, but I found that interesting. Point 3 is, you're right, Pete. This is a very complicated waste collection system we have in the county. I mean, we've got so many different people and organizations that are involved, from Metro itself to the in my district area. They are not unaffiliated, the
Unincorporated.
unincorporated
Unincorporated.
areas to the individual 82 cities and then also the HOAs and whatnot. But all of them potentially doing it all different from each other. How the hell do we going to figure that all out? Even with this contractor, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. And one thing that I think saves us a little bit is that this contract's not scheduled to be finished until almost this time next year, maybe July, August of next year. So we got some time to work with them on this, and then also discuss among ourselves what's, as well as with others potentially, where we go with this, because it's going to be complicated.
Yes.
Yeah, if I could, I would add one thing. The system here is complex. Anybody that we've had here have all said, Consultant Labs has all said that our area is very, very complex compared to most cities. But you can see that reflected in some of the challenges that we've had with consistent messaging.
Right.
And trying to work across consistent messaging across this county, because it really does depend where you're at and it complicates matters. So we also need to look at those types of things. But in the end, I think that we can cut that timeline down a little bit as well. They were including a lot of optional things in there. And I think that they were trying to drum up a little bit more business.
Right.
But pretty clear that we're not going to do any of those things. So I think that timeline can be worked down a little bit shorter. At least I hope so. If we so choose that to move forward.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It has been moved in second. We need to make a vote. Are there any more questions on the vote? Okay, Pete, you want to do a roll call?
Yeah, Brian Funk,
Yes.
Sean Killeen,
I'll vote yes.
Alex Davidson,
Yes.
Andy Reynolds,
Yes.
Deidre Shipley.
Yes.
Motion passed
Okay, so
unanimous
motion-
vote.
I'm sorry, Pete, go ahead.
It was a unanimous vote. Yes.
Okay, the vote has been passed, so Pete, you can go ahead with that. The advisory committee report, Mr. Barrow, I hope I said your name right. And Karen, you all can go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Shipley. I was experiencing the same difficulty as Pete last week during the advisory committee, so I have to apologize and hand it off to Karen.
Yeah, I don't really think there is anything extra to report. We talked about some of the similar things like the RFPs and the litter survey.
Okay. Thank you, advisory committee. Staff report, Kentucky composting conference.
Yeah, I wanted to share this. I was invited to be part of some of the planning of this, I guess. It was kind of a strange way that I ended up on the call, but anyway, there is a Kentucky Composting Conference. I believe it's the second one that they've done. And so for one, I wanted to share this and make sure you all are aware. Our logo is already here. I am already asked to be on one of the panels, and I'll be kind of helping out. But they also offer the scholarships as shown there, and just have expenses to put on the conference. So, so the main reason I wanted to just share, it's not an ask that's enough to require a board vote, but I wanted to make sure, or I just wanted to share with you all that I discussed this with Pete. So that's the information about the conference. It is at U of L. I'm excited to meet this Miss Jean Bonitel. She seems amazing, and I think I'll learn a lot about composting during this. The next two slides are kind of a brief outline of the schedule. It's 2 days. There's a couple panels. There will be composting demonstrations on site at the U of L community compost area with that Brian Barnes is in charge of. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of the second day. I know Smith Creek has also been asked to be a sponsor, and they're aware. Hopefully they'll be part of this too. But part of that request, Pete, on the next slide, they asked for $1,000 to sponsor. That way to cover some scholarships. I know some students that are trying to go from Brown School, for example, but they offer any organization that sponsors a time slot to introduce their organization, logo on materials, and a tabling opportunity, and to join in panel discussions. So like I said, I had already kind of been slated to help with some of these things just from being on the planning, but I was hoping that the board is okay with this, as Pete was, for the $1,000 sponsor request.
So would Bruce and I be eligible for the student fee then for the composting conference?
Sure.
Only if you're audited.
I make a motion to approve the sponsorship.
Go ahead.
And I second.
Okay, are there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 I
Okay.
have a concern.
Okay,
Based upon our discussions about sponsorships, I think that this one is a little bit different. But I think it's great that you guys have approved this. Karen, do we have a date that we need to be able to provide this?
Well, the conference itself is October 17th and 18th, so it is
Yeah.
before the next meeting.
Yeah, so being that we've already got a motion and approved for doing this, I just want to ensure that working with Robbie Howard, that we're going to do this the right way. And, you know, I think that this one is a little bit different. So Robbie, heads up, we'll be looking at this. I think it's a great thing, particularly since we are participating as a panel. I think that we have our hands really deep into the dirt on this one. So
Good one.
All right. Well, that being said, I think that's a good thing to bring up, Pete. I would then like to make a motion to replace our last motion. Same thing, echoing the last motion, but making it contingent upon legal approval.
Second.
okay, all in favor of that motion, amend to the motion, it's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, thank you all. Okay, so
Hey,
the,
Pete,
Mm.
if I can ask one question, where do our leaves go in the fall? I mean, who takes our leaves, and are they? I assume they're all composted somewhere, right?
they are, Metros goes to Smith Creek, which is up to Indiana. They have a place out off of Melton Avenue, and they're shipped up there, composted. I would love that anybody that wants to take a tour of any of the facilities that we have out there to do so. And that would include the landfill, recycling centers, not just West Rock, but Rumpke up in Indiana, Smith Creek, any of those places. I think that seeing is believing. So I would just want to offer that to everybody.
okay, I think we're down to announcements. The next 109 board meeting will be Wednesday, October the 23rd, 2024 at 5:30. And then advisory committee meeting will be Wednesday, October 16th, 2024 at 4:30. At this time, if there's no further business, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
One question, if I could.
Sure.
Thinking ahead, November and December's meetings. November, is the day before Thanksgiving. I mean, I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm not sure what our plans are for that. And then, of course, December is on Christmas Day. So
Where's your dedication?
I said, I'll be here for both, but
That's where we separate the wheat from the chaff here, Brian.
Yeah, I think that's something to discuss at our next meeting.
Right.
To see how we
Very
handle
good.
those.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, second. Second, I second it. Thank you all for letting me host this meeting, and see you all next month. Good
All
night.
right, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Great job.
Thanks,
Deetra.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.